Hey everybody, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. I'm your host, Tony Edward. On your way in, please hit that subscribe button as well as the thumbs up button and leave a comment below. If you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, please leave a 5-star rating and review. Okay, folks, let's kick it off with the price of Bitcoin because this week or this coming week, we should anticipate that Bitcoin should make another big move. Right now, we have a pullback to retest support levels, but we, of course, had a major breakout last week where Bitcoin went from 90,000 to over $97,000. The bulls are still in control on the daily chart based on the MACD, and the RSI still has room to run before we become overbought. On the weekly, we're seeing some positive signs as well, with the RSI also having room to run, and the bears, which are in control right now, are losing momentum big time per the MACD. So when that flips green, the bulls will be in full control, and that would be really good. There are a lot of people calling for the next target being $106,000. One analyst on X shared a chart highlighting the following, saying this ascending triangle has a target of $106,000. Hold the retest over the weekend. So speaking of this weekend, and six figures is back on the menu very soon. So we're not far from 100K. So I think we're going to easily break through that. But certainly there are resistance levels that we have to break through. So we need a strong rally. So 98,179 was the summer lows of last year. The psychological level of $100,000 is also something that's going to be tough. And the October 10th massacre, as one user calls it here on X, of 102,329 will also, serve as resistance. So I do believe we're going to break through. It may take multiple tries. So just be prepared for that. We know the market does not move in a straight line. The big question, as we've been all talking about for a while, is this just simply a dead cat bounce / relief rally, or the continuation to new all-time highs? Something that's a positive sign is that Bitcoin is still in the Gaussian channel. And of course, we're waiting to see it escape from the Gaussian channel because in this situation, if you look at 2021, when the market topped, Bitcoin was deep in the Gaussian channel before the relief rally and then a rollover into the bear market lows. However, I don't think that's going to happen this time, but I could be wrong. I've been sharing a lot of macro factors as to why I believe we're going to continue to move up to new all-time highs, but we're going to have to wait and see which does play out. And the Russell, guys, it continues to show some positive signs, hitting new all-time highs. This is very good for the continuation of the bull market. We're seeing rotational liquidity, starting to see the altcoin sector of the stock market, which is the Russell 2000, starting to make new highs. And I believe the altcoin market in the crypto market will follow soon. So this is a very, very good sign. In addition, gold, has been ripping along with silver. So precious metals have been leading the bull market, and it looks like gold is about to top out very soon. So the top may be close, and that could mean that it's Bitcoin's turn, right? The stock market and Bitcoin. So let's see how this all plays out. Bitcoin has been lagging behind silver, gold, the S&P 500. Global liquidity continues to rise, and those other assets are hitting new highs, but Bitcoin has been in a tough spot since October, where we had that big liquidation. So let's hope Bitcoin can catch up soon to the rest of these assets as the rotation of liquidity takes place. Now, speaking of liquidity, the Fed is set to buy over $55 billion in treasury bills over the next 3 weeks. This is, of course, going to bring in more liquidity into the market, so it's very good for risk assets. And if you look at the charts for US M2, China M2, Japan M2, and even the EU M2, they're all hitting new all-time highs. So, of course, the Fed started quantitative easing in December. They ended quantitative tightening in December and jumped straight to QE because that's the fiat currency system. And, of course, they want to prevent anything from crashing and breaking. So we're seeing the new all-time high. So this bodes well. It's the macro factors I've been highlighting that bodes well for the continuation of the bull market. In addition, I've been highlighting this to you guys in the podcast as well as in my newsletter. Bitcoin whales are accumulating again based on data from Sentiment. On-chain data shows wallets with 10 or more Bitcoin continue to rise and the price is following. So we've seen this multiple times. This is a metric I've been sharing for a while, and the whales were distributing, coming out of October when we had that big liquidation, and they finally stopped and they started accumulating again in late December into January, of course. So this is a very, very positive sign. Now, folks, this episode is brought to you by iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital gives you a great option for investing in crypto and precious metals, as well as the ability to custody your assets in a safe way. So, iTrust Capital allows you to set up a self-directed IRA where you can buy and sell crypto, gold, and silver, and it gives you huge tax benefits. So if you have an existing 401k or IRA, you can easily roll it over and you can start trading, again, buying and selling crypto, precious metals, such as gold and silver 24/7. It's low cost, no monthly fee, and of course, huge tax benefits. So if you have a long-term outlook on these assets, you can simply do it in the IRA and get those tax benefits, folks. So this is a great alternative. And we know that, the buying and selling of assets, you're hitting capital gains tax, right? But if you can do it in an IRA, you're shielded and getting a lot of the tax benefits. Now, they also offer what's called a premium custody account. I believe this is the second safest way to custody your assets, the first being self-custody with a hardware wallet. But iTrust Capital uses institutional grade crypto custody. They use Coinbase Prime, which BlackRock and many institutions use. They use Fireblocks, Fidelity, and others. So you are getting top tier bank level institutional grade custody. So you can sleep at night knowing your assets are safe. And of course, you can buy and sell and transfer within the custody account 24/7. It's a closed loop system. There are low fees. And with the closed loop system, even if someone gets into your account, they can't withdraw, folks. So this is top of the level security here. So iTrust Capital offering some amazing options that you need to check out. I have an account with them. And if you sign up with my link, you can get a $100 funding bonus. So check out iTrust Capital. Link will be in the description. Now, folks, we got major drama between the White House and Coinbase. So many of you know Coinbase, they backed out on the support for the draft of the crypto market structure bill because there was a lot of things in there which were not great for crypto, mainly the banks lobbying against stablecoin yield on platforms like Coinbase and other exchanges. And I'm in agreement with Coinbase. I believe we need to get a proper bill before we push this through. We know the bill is not going to be perfect. There's still going to be some things that we may not like, but there are some major pillars that are being thrown in there by the likes of the banking lobby, Elizabeth Warren, and others. Well, Eleanor Terrett reported that the White House is considering pulling its support for the crypto market structure bill entirely if Coinbase does not come back to the table with a yield agreement that satisfies the banks and gets everyone to a deal. A source close to the Trump administration tells me the White House is said to be furious with Coinbase's unilateral action on Wednesday, which it apparently was not notified of in advance, calling it a rug pull against the White House and the rest of the industry. The White House does not believe that one company speaks for the entire industry, the source continued. Here's a quote: "This is President Trump's bill at the end of the day, not Brian Armstrong's." Wow, strong words there, strong language, folks. Okay, a couple of layers to peel back from this onion. First, I don't think the White House and the administration, these folks, are upset that Coinbase doesn't like the bill. I think they wanted communication to let them know, hey, we're backing out of this. And also they want them to come back with solutions, which I get. Now, to be fair, it's not just Coinbase and Brian Armstrong. There's a lot of industry experts who are backing Coinbase and saying, hey, we agree with Coinbase. So I don't think it's just Coinbase and Brian Armstrong saying that. Look, I'm personally saying that, and I've seen a ton of industry folks. I mean, big leaders and CEOs and much more that agree with Coinbase. So I think they're going to figure this out. This is just a matter of communication and getting on the same page. And look, the banking lobby, they are pushing hard. And you can imagine they're probably putting some pressure on members of Congress as well as the White House because they're big guys. They got a lot of capital. And the midterm elections are coming up. So they're going to try to get as much as they can. And I don't think Trump and some of the Republicans can outright dismiss the banks because, again, we all know how the politics works in the game of money and campaign donations. However, Brian Armstrong came out and said he denies this report from Eleanor Terrett And he says negotiations are ongoing. So Brian Armstrong denied reports the White House is considering pulling support for the Clarity Act, a crypto market structure bill, and also denied rumors that the administration is furious with Coinbase. Here's a quote: "The White House has been super constructive here. They did ask us to see if we can go figure out a deal with the banks, which we're currently working on," Armstrong said. So a bit of drama here, right? He said, she said, and all that. But again, guys, this is just the ugly sausage making process. I think they're going to figure it out, and I think everybody's going to get on the same page. The White House may have been a little bit upset again with the lack of communication or whatever it may be, and also Brian, he did a bit of a media tour going on TV on Thursday and Friday, and they may not have been happy with that. But look, not a big deal. I think the White House, some folks may be upset, but they got to get this done. The U.S. has to get this done. If we want to remain competitive in the world, if we want to open up jobs and let this industry flourish, they got to do it, because even the TradFi folks, the banks and the Wall Street firms, despite them fighting certain aspects, they're all building with the technology, right? So even President Trump and his family have tons of crypto businesses. So I think in the end, a bill will get done. There's going to be some negotiation. We'll have to see what the compromise is, and they will get this done. I don't believe they've come this far, and these back and forth things that are going on, which are normal, by the way, for legislation, is going to stop anything from progressing. So again, a bit of drama, but just a little bump in the road, from a long-term perspective. Now, speaking of legislation, White House Crypto Council Director Patrick Witt, he highlighted what's going on with the Bitcoin Reserve Bill. So he says obscure laws stall the Bitcoin Reserve. So this is still a work in progress. And here's what he had to say. Several government agencies are discussing the legalities and regulatory issues of establishing a Bitcoin strategic reserve, including the Department of Justice and the Office of Legal Counsel. Witt told Crypto in America podcast. He says it seems straightforward, but then you get into some obscure legal provisions and why this agency can't do it, but actually this other agency could. We're continuing to push on that. It is certainly still on the priority list right now. So I think they'll figure it out eventually. This is a very brand new thing, and you still have members of the government who may not be fully educated and not know what to do. And they may just be holding it and they're like, well, what do we do? How do we custody? There's a lot here. And you got to first educate folks. You got to get the conversation going. You got to get all the agencies on the same page. So it's a lot of work, right? But I think the main thing, the top priority should be the crypto market structure bill, and then you can work on the Bitcoin reserve. It might actually be easier to get the Bitcoin reserve and the digital asset stockpile going if you have the crypto market structure bill passed, because then it forces a lot of the agencies to get on the same page. Here's the rules of the road. Everybody has the same plan, has the same set of rules, and then you can get folks to rally behind things like a Bitcoin strategic reserve and much more. So I think getting the market structure done is the high priority item. Now, speaking of Bitcoin, Stake and Shake announces $10 million notional increase in Bitcoin holdings. So you got another company here that is adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. And let me give you the details. Steak and Shake fast food restaurant chain that accepts Bitcoin payments at its stores announced on Friday that its Bitcoin corporate treasury grew by $10 million in notional value. Here's a quote: "All Bitcoin sales go into our strategic Bitcoin reserve," the company said, adding that adopting Bitcoin as a treasury asset has led to a flywheel effect that increases same-store sales, which in turn grows the company's Bitcoin stash. So this is great to see this type of adoption, folks. Now, this is an actual company that has a real business, and they're adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, and they're accepting Bitcoin for payments. This is really great. I've been critical of digital asset treasury companies like MicroStrategy, which, yes, they have a core business, but now they've completely shifted where they're raising billions in debt to go buy Bitcoin. And I believe that's too much leverage. It's very risky. And I don't like that. I like a bit of balance, kind of like what Tesla is doing. Tesla is doing their thing as a company. They've taken some of their cash, not all of their cash. They're not raising debt, and they're just taking some cash and bought some Bitcoin. Absolutely fine. right? So we got to make sure we distinguish between companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet and digital asset treasury companies, which their main focus is to just hold crypto, right? And do the arbitrage and other things and raise debt. Now, I believe it's okay to raise some level of debt. I worry about MicroStrategy and the amount of debt they raise, right? Because too much leverage. We've seen historically what can happen there. Okay, look at this news. China-led cross-border CBDC platform mBridge surges past $55 billion in transaction volume. So despite China, in the years past banning crypto, blockchain, or whatever, we know they're in because Hong Kong, which they control, is all in on crypto, right? That is a country or jurisdiction that is under control of the Chinese government. And China, they're looking to do a lot of things with blockchain and digital assets, including CBDCs, but also making finance and smart cities and like Shanghai and so forth, making them technologically advanced with blockchain. So let me give you the details here. Project mBridge has processed over $55 billion in cumulative cross-border transactions, a roughly 2,500-fold increase since 2022, per New Atlantic Council data cited by Reuters. China's digital yuan accounts for approximately 95% of settlement volume on the platform, which includes central banks from mainland China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. The Bank of International Settlements exited the project in late 2024 and is now focused on a rival Western initiative called Project Agora. So, very interesting, guys. This is the token economy, which we've been talking about for years now. And I've been telling you all, the future economy, markets, and governments will all run on blockchain rails. That is the end game. Okay, final news item speaks to stablecoin adoption. So HR services provider Gusto taps Zero Hash to speed up global payouts with stablecoins. So the move targets growing demand from small businesses employing international and contingent workers. So guys, this is a clear example of how this technology is solving a problem, improving payments, because you have the instant settlement, you have the transparency, and it can run 24/7. You got lots of liquidity. Money's not just sticking around or stuck in certain places. It can be put to work. So this will change, the international payments game, your cross-border payments and all that, guys. I think we all know that, but it's great to see confirmation of real-world adoption like this, right? Where you have an HR services platform allowing not just big businesses, but small businesses and medium-sized businesses to leverage the technology. So we all know where the puck is heading, folks. It's just a matter of time. The infrastructure getting set up, adoption, and it's happening globally. Folks, that's the news. Let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts and comments below. Hit the thumbs up button. Do you believe Bitcoin will cross $100,000 this week? It's certainly possible. Let's see what type of breakout or strength we get. Obviously, expect volatility. This is the nature of the market. It's par for the course. But let me know what you guys think. And please support the podcast by subscribing to my free email newsletter. Yesterday, I did a write-up, so make sure you check it out. I put a lot of charts in there, things I'm thinking about and looking at. So again, it's 100% free on Substack. Also, be sure to grab a copy of my book on Amazon. It's available in paperback and digital, and my course at mycryptocourse.com. This is a comprehensive course that teaches you everything you need to know about crypto. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you all later.